Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Trainz Simulator. It's been a while since I did a Trainz 2019 freeware video. I've been obviously doing the Railworks Pennsylvania stuff, which I was going to do another Pennsylvania DLC on that, but the out of memory errors kind of pissed me off today, so no train sim. Today we're doing Trainz, because Trainz doesn't like to crash on me out of the blue. So this is one that had been requested a while back. I just never got around to it. It's not one that I dive into all that often, mostly because there's not a whole lot out there for the time period, but these are the Virginia and Truckee Baldwin 440s. These are, I believe, updated models? I'm not dead certain. These look far better than the older models that we used to have in game, but there used to be some old Virginia and Truckee 440s as well as the 260s in game from like 2006. But these look laughably better. I don't know if these are entirely new models or not, but if those of you that had a hand in making this or watching probably notice I don't have the full list of locomotives that are included, and that's because this video would be ungodly long if I tried to put all of them down, not to mention going over each and every detail between each locomotive as well as trying to remember which one's which, because I'm not that well off versed, but these are well enough to I think this is a decent enough representation of what you'll get. We have our as-built Reno and Genoa, and kind of our late iterations of the Reno and Genoa here, and then we've got Inyo here in the kind of intermittent time period. These are the three big name Virginia Truckee 440s that are surviving today. I believe all three are, or two of them are operational. One of them very recently came out of abandonment. I believe it was the Reno here. Reno was finally picked up. It had been owned for some time by a movie company, and it had been abandoned, left to rot. But for those of you that are into classic movies, chances are you have seen one, if not all, of these locomotives in operation, because these were ever popular in the 30s, 40s, and 50s for old westerns. John Wayne westerns, Clint Eastwood, Tom Selleck, Sam Elliott, Jimmy Stewart, all them big western names. Chances are you've probably seen one or all of these locomotives in operation in one of their movies. Especially Reno. Reno starred in a bunch of western movies, and so yeah, famous movie stars. As I said, we got a ton of variations that will come with the pack. It is freeware on Trainz Forge, and they're a long list. Each and every single locomotive has kind of a 3 to 4 year increments from their build date all the way up to, I believe, 1905, 1916. I believe 1916 is the latest for Reno right there. So, nice long list of locomotives, or rather variations. I would be here all day if I had put each and every single variation down, so sorry if you're looking for that, but best I can tell you is you just kind of have to download the pack and test them out yourself. But we will look at some of the differences as time goes on, as time went on with these locomotives, because they did remain in service with the VNT for quite some time, well after their obsolete date. Granted, they did not remain in over-the-road services. By the late 1800s, these locomotives were pretty much obsolete. They got regulated to yard service, branch line services, lightweight duties, until being sidelined. Matter of fact, that's why it's actually relatively popular to have seen many of these in movies, because by the time the Virginian Truckies was done with them, about all they were worth was their scrap value. So it was pretty cheap for movie companies to pick one up to use for their movies and such. Pretty cheap, pretty easy, and back then there weren't so many regulations. A movie company could run a steam locomotive into the ground if they so pleased to, which is pretty much what happened to Reno until it was abandoned. Reno got used for tons of movies. They ran it for years. But I will get this out of the way too. I'm not going to take the time to go through each and every single locomotive sounds because they're all identical. The one and only change that happens is when the locomotives get their pumps here, and in the case of Reno over here, the later model, it's got a steam generator up here on top, so obviously you have the generator sound. But other than that, they all use the exact same chop sounds, the exact same whistle, the exact same bell. There's nothing really to distinguish them. So I'm not going to take the time to go through all of them for that. It's just pointless. If you've heard one, you've heard all of them. So starting off, like I said, we got Genoa and Reno over here. Both of these are as built. So as built, we're going to have a nice lack of complications. So no generators, no electric anythings, no pumps, no nothing. Everything's done the good old-fashioned hard way. Link and pin couplers, beautiful paint job. So as years goes on, your fuel source is going to change. But wood burner days, many of your locomotives would have been, most companies opted to paint for bright, pretty, nice colors. Wood burning locomotives are easier to keep clean than oil and coal. Once oil and coal took over, locomotives pretty much got regulated to this right here. Most companies opted to just leave them black and gray, or just an outright unpainted boiler cover. That kind of Russian steel, Russian iron, graphite smoke boxes, stuff like that. But once you get into the oil and coal are very dirty burning, so it'll leave a residue all over the locomotives. They get dirty really quick, so most companies opted to just go black, save time, don't have to clean it as often, doesn't show how dirty they are. But as built, have this really pretty coloring. And then kind of as built, all three locomotives, all four, I believe it's three, I don't remember if it's 3 or 4, but all of the locomotives as built pretty much gonna look the same. They come from the same batch, so no real differences between them outside of the name on the cab here. And then as time goes on, we kind of have our intermittent period here, or late 1880s. Our paint jobs are starting to get a little more simple, so obviously we don't have the red tender wheels, and trucks, we don't have the intricate outlining on the drivers. We've got a painted cab. It had an air pump added here. Still retains the emblem on that side, but they get a pump added on later on. Still using the Lincoln pin at this point. Even though they don't quite line up. Granted, I believe these cars are a good deal older than, or these cars haven't been updated. One of the two, I don't know. And then time soldiers on a little bit further, and we end up over here. Air pumps. Locomotive gets brakes. Here we got some brakes. Isn't that a nice thing to have? So we get brakes, pumps, knuckle couplers, Herald. Yeah, the emblem's gone on both sides by now. Obviously we've gone to black. Our stack has changed a little bit. Our headlight has changed a little bit. It's still a oil burning headlight, still oil, so you can see the little lantern in there. But it's still oil burning, no generator. And then we come over here to Reno. Reno got done up with this more for movies and such as time went on. I believe a lot of this was added on during the movie star time period, but obviously we get many of the same additions. Brakes, pump, knuckle couplers on both end, obviously the black paint job, oil burning. So we got an oil burning bunker, and oil burning apparatuses. And then probably the most notable feature is our generator up here, which is quite odd for a locomotive this time period when it was built. But the steam generator up here for electricity, so we get an electric headlight. More modern can, which looks so off on a locomotive of this time period, but yeah, there are more visual differences. All locomotives have a nicely detailed valve gear and such. Later models are going to have a nice weathering along the bottom here, which is pretty nice. Trainz does a decent weathering job. Nice and dusty. These locomotives, well, obviously they run for the Virginia and Truckee, so they spend a lot of time out west. Dusty places out west. Versus our as-built are going to be relatively clean. Back then, these locomotives would have stayed pretty clean. Of course, you can't keep a steam locomotive perfectly clean, but these locomotives would have stayed pretty clean back in the day, which is shown here. And even underneath of our tender is pretty nicely detailed. I'm on the Strasburg Railroad, so I've got my shadows turned off. It's hence one side looks a little oddly colored with no shadow on the ground because frame rates. But yeah, it's about all that's changed. So let's take a listen, shall we? We want Inyo here with our train. Set our track up so that we can get out of here. Now the sounds are far from new. They're awesome. So you know what, now that I think about it, yeah. Prove it. Oh, I'm using the same whistle. Yeah, far from new, they're awesome. So instead of using the same dang blasted hooter whistle that most of this time period ends up having when people do them, now I'm not hating on it too bad because it's Trainz. It's very easy to swap sounds around as you see fit, but That old hooter that gets used, it's just that it's old. It's been around for so freaking long, and it's used on so many things. It just it's kind of pitiful, but so it's nice to hear a different hooter used finally. Most of these locomotives would have carried the same whistle pretty much throughout their lifetime. The whistle really wouldn't have changed. It would have been this old-fashioned hooter whistle. So you really won't get any variation. It's just the sound itself. It's a nicer, newer sound. Which is blended fairly nice. You can kind of hear that crackling there partway where the loop starts to take over. Right there. But it does have a nice start, a nice end, and a fairly nice in between. Just that little pop. Bell sounds nice. There's a pull cord bell, and the rope moves inside and out all the way through. It's pretty neat. Let's see. Headlight. Love the headlight. Oh, I love the headlight. I absolutely love it. So these old oil headlamps, these old oil boxes, and even this later one here is still oil burning, but these are not bright. Oil burning headlamps are not bright by any stretch. It's pretty much a soft glow. If any of you have ever lit a candle, that's quite literally what these are, is just a candle inside of a little glass tube, and in the back, shielding behind them is silver to kind of give off the best lighting they can. So these are far from bright, but that is easily one of the best renditions of a oil headlamp that I have seen across all train simulators right now. The actual little particle does kind of stick way out here. It's kind of odd, and whenever you look around you can see it through things, which is a little bit odd, but not too terribly noticeable. And just for giggles and squiggles, we're gonna hop over here to Reno just because it's got an electric lamp, so it'll change a little bit, but not drastically. Actually looks pretty decent still. I think it should be a little bit brighter, but not laughably brighter. Not the neon white that we see all the time. I actually prefer this over the neon white that we always see. So that looks pretty good. Pretty good, but just for giggles and squiggles, these do have a nice cab done up. And this will have some, the biggest reason I'm using Reno right now is Reno's insides are going to change just a little bit because Reno is obviously an oil burner. So we got our oil burning bells and whistles to go along with it. But cab is fairly well detailed. I say it just about all my Trainz videos. I really don't care all that much for a cab. For Trainz, in my opinion, Trainz is more of a model railroad simulator, so I don't operate the cab very often. But for those of you that like to run in the cab in Trainz, it does have a pretty decent cab overall. Fairly well detailed. All of them do. We'll go over here like our classical wood burning. As you can see, we ain't got our oil apparatuses over here on our wood burners. It's a little more simple. Not too much crazy going on. Over here, obviously we'll get a brake stand since we got brake pumps added on. Get a brake stand that these don't have. Because, well, ain't got no brakes. Your brakes are back here on the tender. So, no brake stand. It's cool to see those changes. Let's see, what else do we normally fiddle with? Yeah. Details. Smoke box door has many of Trainz Forge's items. Smoke box door can be opened. Got a nicely detailed smoke box here. Close that. And then train class. We'll add some flags up here to our candlesticks. This is before the time of marker lights up on the locomotive front ends. Engineer door. Oh. Yeah, I never liked it when they do this. So it's kind of a slider. It can only move in single increments, so you gotta keep clicking it. But engineer and fireman doors. Engineer and fireman window. That's it for these models. I don't think much changes across all of them. There we go. Same bells and whistles. Same bells and whistles. And same bells and whistles. Reno gets marker lights. I imagine, most likely, Genoa gets marker lights as well. Nope. Flagpoles up on the front. Pretty much the same options across the board. Lastly, we got to just take it out. Take it on the road. Now the pump sound is kind of It is cool. The pump does operate. You just kind of see it in there. But you can hear that noticeable pop at the beginning of the pump sound, which is kind of annoying, but if you're not wearing a headset, it's not quite as noticeable. Chef sounds are pretty nice. They're not too terribly loud, but these locomotives are not the loudest in the world by any means. Of course, you can see our valve gear in here. Nice and functional, which looks pretty good. Honest to gosh, it does look pretty good. Yeah, we're gonna break speed a little bit here. These old 440s typically would not have run above 25-30 mile an hour. They can run above it all day. They just typically, due to track conditions back when these were built, these wouldn't have run much more than 25-30. However, with our throttle maxed out, see what it can do. It's a pretty much straight shot here, so it's not such an issue. So with our DCC throttle maxed out, we're doing 50. Actually ain't bad. It's roundabout what these locomotives could do. Most of these earlier locomotives, around about the 1870s and such, about 60 is their top. Seeing one at 60 is a pretty rare sight, but about 60 is pretty much what they could do. So 50, it's probably a safe margin. Right here, about 25. This is where most of those old westerns and whatnot, this is right here is what you would see them running at. Smoke looks pretty nice, you know, not too thick. Wood burners, especially when they're fired correctly, they won't belch black smoke or anything. I do think the chuffs, especially at this point, they're a little bit quiet. You really can't hear it. Like right here at 75, I can't hear any chuffs. Right about here, now you can kind of hear them. So the chuffs are a little bit quiet, in my opinion. But not bad. Not bad. The chances of seeing one of these in Strasbourg are low, but it is kind of an entertaining sight. So not bad. It doesn't stop too fast, but it stops quick enough for Trainz. It does. It sounds pretty decent. The chuff rate there at that very end, that like 5 mile an hour mark, it really kicks up. The volume goes up a lot. I kind of wish the volume would stay a little more incremental, not quite such a drastic change, but other than that, these are fairly nice locomotives. I'm gonna hop back here to Reno again since oil burner. I'm gonna see if the oil burner makes much of a difference with our smoke. Nah, not really. Smoke looks about the same. Which isn't too far-fetched. I mean, these things are gonna burn pretty well. So, nothing too wild. For those of you that enjoy the Old West time period, these are definitely a must-have. Trainz Fords also has a long list of other 440s and 260s from the time period. I believe a set of 460s. But there's a handful of them for UP, CP, of course the Virginian Truckee, CP meaning both Canadian Pacific and Central Pacific, oddly enough. But yeah, there they are, guys. The Virginia and Truckee 440s by Trainz Forge. Available for free. If you don't have them, go check them out. They're well worth it. Well worth it. Really and truly, my only complaint with them is that popping noise. I don't like the popping noise with the air pumps. Gets really annoying really fast if you've got a headset on. And then of course the chuff rate, the chuff, or not the chuff rate, the chuff volume I think is a little bit low. I think initially it sounds pretty nice, and then it just quiets down to an almost inaudible level. I kind of wish its volume was turned up just a little bit, not too laughably loud, because these locomotives are not loud by any means. These are actually fairly quiet for a steam locomotive. Are they perfectly quiet? Absolutely not, but for what they are, they're actually very quiet. You're not going to get that loud, pronounced powerhouse chuff of Western Maryland's 1309 climbing a hill, but it's going to be a fairly noticeable, especially with your throttle open, it's going to be a fairly noticeable punch. So I think the volume could stand to be turned up a little bit, but other than that, these are great looking locomotives. They sound pretty decent. Yeah, go check them out. I ain't got much else to say about them. So till next time, I will see you guys later.